Mary sat quietly in the back row of the lecture hall, a biro balanced between her fingers as she tried to focus on the open page of her notebook. The air was thick, with the familiar hum of restless undergraduates, some whispering, others scrolling through their phones, a few pretending to pay attention. But today's lecture felt different. Instead of their usual grumpy lecturer, a tall young man stood at the front. His crisp shirt sleeves were rolled neatly to his elbows, revealing strong forearms as he arranged his notes, his voice, smooth and firm, carried across the hall. I know your lecturer couldn't make it today, he said, smiling slightly. So, I'll be taking the class. My name is Ari. I'm a master's student in the department. A few girls in the front row giggled and exchanged glances, whispering behind their hands. Harry's warm brown eyes scanned the room with ease, his confidence almost disarming. When his gaze drifted towards the back, it landed on Mary. For a brief moment, his expression softened. He noticed her quiet focus, the way her head tilted slightly as she listened. Mary quickly dropped her eyes, her heart racing. As the lecture went on, she found herself stealing glances at him, watching the way he explained complex theories with patience and humor. He didn't talk down to them the way some lecturers did. He made eye contact, smiled often, and even cracked small jokes that had the hall rippling with laughter. By the time the class ended, the chatter around her was filled with only one topic. It's fine, I beg. One girl sighed dramatically. Which department did he say again? I must register elective there, another whispered. Now, master students like that, they do substitutes. He looks like a proper lecturer. Mary chuckled softly as she packed her books, trying to ignore the butterflies in her stomach. But just as she stood up, Harry stepped away from the podium, his eyes catching hers again. He smiled, hesitated briefly, then walked towards her room. Hi, he said gently, extending his hand. I don't think we've officially met. I'm Harry. Mary froze for a moment before taking his hand. His palm was warm, steady. Mary, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Mary, he repeated slowly, as though tasting the name. Nice to meet you. Her cheeks burned under his gaze. They exchanged a few words about the lecture and then, unexpectedly, realized they both live in the same off campus residence. Harry's face lit up. Ah, that's good. At least I know I won't be the only one suffering Nepa Wahala tonight. Mary laughed. The tension isn't true. Yesterday I had to read with candle. It's not easy. Then maybe Harry leaned slightly closer. We can suffer together. Study sessions, candlelight tutorials, the full Nigerian student package. Mary laughed again, covering her mouth shyly. By the time they left the hall, the sun was dipping low, casting a golden glow on the campus. Harry offered to walk her back to the residence. Their steps fell into rhythm as they strolled along the dusty paths, weaving past small kiosks selling meat pies and chilled coke. Harry said, glancing at her, you're quieter than most people in class. But when you spoke today, it was clear, confident. I like that. Mary's chest warmed. I just prefer to listen most times. Well, that's a good thing, Harry replied softly. Some of us talk too much. When they reached the residence gate, Harry slowed the steps. So I'll see you later. Dinner or maybe the study lounge? Mary hesitated a bit. Before nodding, I'll like that. That evening, Harry didn't go straight upstairs when they got back to the residence. Instead, he stopped and looked at Mary with a mischievous smile. Have you eaten? He asked. Mary shook her head. Not yet. Good, Harry grinned. Follow me. I know a spot. They walked down the street together, onto the smoky aroma of fried plantain and stew eating Mary's nose. A booker sat by the roadside, its zinc roof rattling softly in the night breeze. Inside, long wooden benches were crowded with students and neighbors. A kerosene lantern flickered in the corner, casting shadows on the walls. Madam K! Harry called cheerfully as he entered. Two plates of rice, plenty stew, and plantain a bag. The stout woman behind the counter smiled wide. Harry, you don't carry new friend come. Her eyes twinkled as they swept over Mary. Mary blushed. Lowering her gaze, Harry leaned closer, whispering, Ignore her, she knows everybody. They found a bench in the corner, squeezed side by side. Around them, the booker buzzed with laughter, clicking spoons and the sizzle of frying oil. When the steaming plates arrived, Harry pushed his closer to Mary. Test the stew first. If you don't like it, I'll order something else. Mary obeyed shyly, scooping a spoonful. Her eyes widened. It's perfect, Harry chuckled. See? I told you. They ate slowly, talking about lecturers, assignments, and the madness of NEPA. Harry teased her about the way she carefully picked plantain first from her plate. Across the room, two girls from their residence sat at another bench, whispering and sneaking glances. One of them, Claire, deliberately raised her voice. Harry, won't you greet us? She called with a grin. Harry looked up briefly and waved, then returned to his food and to Mary. Don't mind them, he murmured, his voice low. I'd rather be here. Something in Mary's chest tightened at his words. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, like she wasn't just another face in the crowd. When they finished, Harry insisted on paying despite Mary's protest. As they walked back under the moonlit sky, their steps slow, Mary felt the warmth of companionship settle around her. At the residence gate, Harry paused. So, study lounge tomorrow, he asked hopeful. Mary smiled softly, her heart light. Yes. That night, as she lay on her tin mattress with the distant hum of generators outside, one thought kept echoing in her mind. Harry. The weeks that followed were a blur of laughter, hushed conversations, and stolen hours in the study lounge. Mary and Harry fell into a rhythm that felt inevitable, like two rivers merging. After classes, he would appear by her side with a smile and a pack of granules, or sometimes suya wrapped in old newspaper. At night, when the residence light flickered and NEPA seized power, he would knock gently on her door. Mary, his voice would come low, careful not to wake the corridor. Study time. And each time, her heart would leap as she opened the door. They studied by lantern glow, their books spread across the table. But often, the silence between words grew heavier than the assignments. Harry's hand would brush over hers as he guided her biro across the page. Sometimes he leaned too close, his breath warm against her cheek, as he explained the formula. Mary tried to focus on the words, but her pulse always betrayed her. One night, after hours of equation and quiet laughter, Harry leaned back and watched her. Mary, he said softly, do you know how much you mean to me? Her pen froze. She turned to him, eyes wide. Harry, he reached across the table, his fingers coiling around hers. His touch was steady, but his voice trembled. It's like when I look at you, the noise of everything fades. I don't know if I've ever felt this way before. Mary's chest rose and fell as she searched his face. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Harry leaned in, slow and hesitant, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met in a kiss that started soft but deepened with a hunger both had tried to deny. Mary's hands clutched the shirt, pulling him closer. As his arm slid around her waist, the lantern flickered, casting shadows on the walls as the kiss grew fiercer, desperate. Harry put away slightly, his forehead resting against hers, both of them breathless. Mary, if we don't stop now, his voice was rough, pained. Mary closed her eyes, trembling. Every part of her screamed not to stop, but a quieter part whispered of boundaries she wasn't ready to cross. With a shudder, she put back, pressing her hands to her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. Harry touched her cheek gently, tilting her face back towards him. Don't ever apologize for what we feel. It's real, Mary. It's ours. Her eyes brimmed with tears as she nodded. That night, lying awake on her tin mattress, Mary could still taste him on her lips. Her body burned with longing, and her heart ached with the knowledge that this was no ordinary crush. It was something vast, something that felt like it had been written in her soul long before this life. But the universe was not done with them yet. Semester had settled into its rhythm. Lectures, study nights, book out dinners, and the quiet flame that burned between Harry and Mary. The girls in the residence had not stopped their pursuit of Harry. Every day brought another admirer, hovering around him with cooked jollof rice, assignments, needing help, or fake excuses to borrow his lecture notes. But Harry only had eyes for Mary. And though she told herself not to care about the whispers and side glances, her heart always lifted when he brushed past the others to sit beside her, when he chose her voice over theirs. It was a bright Saturday morning. Mary had gone to the faculty building to return a borrowed textbook when she nearly collided with him. Dio, tall, broad shouldered, with skin that caught the sun like polished bronze. Dio carried himself with ease of someone who had never had to beg life for anything. His athletic frame and his sneakers were the kind Mary had only seen on Instagram pages. Careful, dear, he said with a smile, steadying her by the arm. His voice was smooth, a little teasing. I'm sorry, Mary muttered, flustered, trying to pull away. But his eyes lingered. No harm done, actually. You just improved my morning. Mary blinked. Excuse me? Tayo chuckled, sliding his hands into his pockets. You're the kind of girl a man notices once and doesn't forget. What's your name? Mary hesitated. Something about him unsettled her. Mary. Mary, he repeated slowly, as if tasting the syllables. A beautiful name for a beautiful woman. I'm Dio. Veterinary medicine. Vet, she asked surprised. He nodded. Fine, now, yeah, don't worry. I don't bite unless you're a goat or a dog. Mary laughed in spite of herself. There was something bold, almost reckless about him. She should have walked away, but instead she let him fall into step beside her as they headed towards the residence. By the time they reached the streets lined with provision stores and barber shops, Tayo had made her laugh 3 more times. It was witty, charming, too smooth, but undeniably magnetic. Mary found herself smiling, then quickly scolding herself for it. They stopped at a kiosk, where Tayo bought her a bottle of malt without asking. You look like someone who needs it, he said casually, handing it to her. Mary raised an eyebrow. And what makes you think so? Because I already want to impress you, Mary, he said simply, looking at her with such intensity that she looked away. Before she could respond, a voice called from across the street, Mary! Her heart launched. She knew that voice. She turned and there was Harry, standing frozen, his eyes dark with confusion. For a moment, time held its breath. Harry! Mary whispered. Dio grinned, unaware of the tension. Ha! Ha! Cousin, he exclaimed, striding over and clapping Harry on the shoulder. You didn't tell me you had angels walking around your campus. Mary's mouth fell open. Cousin? Harry's jaw tightened. Yes, he said shortly, his gaze flickering between them. Dio, oblivious or pretending to be, laughed. Small word, isn't it? He turned to Mary with that same bold smile. Don't worry, Mary. You'll be seeing more of me. Mary's chest tightened as Harry's eyes met hers. His look was not anger, not yet, but a warning. A storm was gathering. And Mary knew, with a sinking heart, that her story had just become infinitely more complicated. It was a hot Tuesday afternoon when Mary's phone buzzed. She had been in the library with Harry. The two of them bent over his notes, his hand brushing hers now and then in ways that set her heart racing. She almost ignored the call. Her father rarely rang during school hours, but something told her to pick it up. Her father's voice was strange. Mary, we're in trouble. Mary sat upright, her pen clattering to the floor. Papa, what's wrong? The loan, he said, almost choking. They said if I don't pay by the end of the month, they will come for me, Mary. I could be jailed. The words crashed into her like cold water. Her chest tightened. But how much? 3 million, he whispered. I've tried everything. I can't raise it. Mary's vision blurred. 3 million? She echoed, her voice small. That was more money than she could ever imagine. Harry noticed her shaking hands and touched her arm. Mary, what is it? She ended the call quickly, unable to speak, and looked at him. The concern in her eyes nearly undid her. It's my father, she whispered. He owes money. They will arrest him. Harry pulled her into his arms. Right there in the library corner. Don't worry, he murmured. We'll find a way. I'll talk to my uncle. Maybe he can. His voice trailed off, as though even he knew the promise was fragile. That night, Mary lay awake. She knew love would not be enough. Thank you so much for watching to this point, guys. I really hope you enjoyed watching this. Please like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for my other videos.